Very good. Here we are. Jayce Bartok, my friend. Oh, how
Hello.
I love you. I think you're the greatest.
I'm a big fan of yours myself.
Yeah. Well, what the nicest thing to come out of this on a personal level, the whole, doing a podcast this long, is just being able to say, I like this guy. I think he's talented. I like the energy he brings when I have him on. It would be
Thanks,
great,
man.
or her on, depending on who.
Yeah.
I'm talking. And you end up bringing them back. And I'm like, I have on my friends every week if I thought that people would be interested in that, but they want
Right.
different. But I am happy to bring you on far more frequently than you have been on. It's just that when I saw your name on When They See Us,
Yeah.
did I get the title exactly right?
That's it. When They See Us. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When I saw it, then I saw Jayce Bartok in the credits. I was so excited. I said, "Oh, I'm so happy! I'm so happy for you."
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm. It's quite a thing that's happening with it. I mean, it's very powerful. It's definitely unlike anything I've participated in recent memory or ever. I mean, it's wild.
It's getting a huge amount of viewership.
Yeah, it's totally nuts, and the effect that it's having, I think, is profound. Just in the conversations I've been having in our community, and obviously the stuff in the media and in the press and stuff. It's really unique.
How much press are they asking you to do?
Well, for me, very little. I mean, I think those of us that play, the detectives, and it's a huge cast. It's like
sprawling.
I think it's like 117 characters or something.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and I think there's definitely 40 of us that are substantial and have been doing tons of press. Not to say that the rest of us aren't, and that we don't all have really fascinating parts. Because I truly believe what Ava put together, and I think she said this recently on NPR, that literally every part in the film is of great importance. I think there's one character that plays Raymond Santana's girlfriend in the present, and she's in it in quite a few scenes, but she literally has like 8 lines, and that each one of those lines is so important to the film. And it's definitely something that we all felt while we were working on it, that there was just this incredible, everyone was just throwing themselves into it, on a level that they don't usually do,
right?
Because of the importance of what,
right? Yes.
You felt that
right.
This could be, and what the opportunity to get to work on material like this with somebody like Ava, with the cast, the DP, just the energy, obviously the real Central Park 5, the exonerated 5, those 5 men's stories, and the weight of that, I think, kind of really motivated everybody in a way that I've never really experienced before.
Well, between Ava's name and Ava's directing this and Netflix, I mean, the sheer number of people who are going to see this, it's just such an important subject. Whereas, a lot of documentaries that have been made on let's say, a variation of this subject on more recent stories, they have, some of them have very good sized audiences, but it's not going to be anything close to what this is going to have. It's just on a basic level. This is going to, I'm sure, hitting, I mean, I got to guess, I don't know, millions?
I think it's something, I think, Ava was aware that it could drop into not just viewership in the United States, but into the 100 and some countries that Netflix drops its original releases into those homes. So
right.
Worldwide. But to that I say, this is my perspective, right? Mm-hmm. Playing a detective in the film that does some really, really, really bad things, right?
Yeah, you play a really horrible person.
Yeah, I play a horrible guy. And I think working on it, we were all aware that we were making something special, right? Mm-hmm. That this was incredibly exciting in terms of like, it's your dream as an actor to work with a director of that stature, a DP like Bradford, to play opposite Michael K. Williams, who, hands down is one of the best actors that we have out there, so it was, a dream. But at this, the flip side is that I thought, well, is this going to be something that's really, earnest and really powerful? But, a lot of people are going to be like, oh man, I can't watch that. Like, that's just, I'd rather watch. Yeah. I'd just rather watch something else, so I was like, I'm sure critically it's going to really hit, and that, it's going to find, an audience, and it's going to move people. But to the extent that it's sort of like catapulted itself into kind of the national conversation directly to, President Trump, and having Linda Fairstein step down from boards, and, Elizabeth Lederer step down, the DAs that were involved, no one could have, I mean, I'm sure Ava knew this was possible, but I, in my little actor filmmaker life, couldn't have dreamed that it would have that kind of, where people are referring to it as, like Roots, and like that it's, if you haven't seen it, you're not a part of the conversation, which is crazy. Like how I have no idea how you don't.
Right.
She, in my feeling from her, Ava made this out of pure passion, and it truly felt like an independent film. It felt like intense, disorganized in a good way, like 3 camera operators, all women, all department heads of color. It was like the inverse of a normal shoot. But there was like something like, Ava's in charge. Like, there's rehearsals, it begins and ends with her, and you felt like, she's the general, and you have the opportunity to really make your mark and do something in terms of an actor or a creative person in that environment. She fostered that. I think you were on the bus or you were off the bus. I didn't see anybody off the bus, but you know what I mean? You were just sort of like there. So it was truly unique in that way.
Now, you played Detective Hildebrandt?
Yeah.
Is that a
Detective
real
Hildebrandt,
guy,
yeah.
or was that like a composite?
No, he's a real guy. He, I, in my like Googling abilities, Detective Hildebrandt is not, there's not a lot of pictures. I thought maybe you met with him, you had lunch with him. I truly wish, and I'll definitely get into that, but he is a real guy. He appears, in my understanding, there's a famous piece of footage from the Ken and Sarah Burns doc where the detectives escort, the exonerated 5 out of the precinct. And he is this kind of like floppy-haired, blondish guy, which is sort of a departure from your kind of hard-boiled New York detective face, right? And then, but it's very brief. And then he is in tons of the, there's a huge like 200-page report, which is like a rebuttal when the exonerated 5, sued the city and then tried to bring criminal charges against the city. There's a giant rebuttal, and he's all over that. His name is mentioned like a gajillion times. So if you Google Detective Hildebrandt, thousands of court documents come up. But beyond that, I couldn't really find like any, is he retired in Florida? Does he live in the Bronx? Is he alive? Is he dead?
Really, he's off the grid for all intents and purposes.
Off the grid, as many of those guys are. I mean, each one of us kind of delved into their detectives' history. They're all those detectives that are portrayed are real detectives. And, in terms of my research, at first I was like, oh, everyone's just going to want to talk about this. Everybody's going to be like, I'm just going to walk into the precinct, or phone up, a friend from high school that's on the NYPD, and they're just going to be like, sure. As you can imagine, that, no, nobody really wanted to talk. It was really difficult. There's definitely, sort of a veil of silence, a blue veil, whatever you want to call it, in terms of connecting to, those real guys. So I basically reached out to a friend that's a detective, a longtime veteran on the Milwaukee police force to talk about like detective protocol. And then, through, my high school, Xavier, all boys Catholic high school on 16th Street, Jesuit, and a friend of mine is in the NYPD. So he was willing to talk, and he basically talked to me about, how the detectives work and how they approach a situation, what their instincts are, their real detective instincts, when they feel that someone is right for something, and how they approach that based on obviously the evidence and their instincts, and how they work, which was fascinating to me. And I really am grateful for that conversation, because, for those of us that had to play those really brutal parts, Ava entrusted us to really come at them with complete conviction, and that's what I found fascinating about being able to sort of portray that character, is the utter conviction that, at least for Detective Hildebrandt, that he was actually helping, helping Antron's dad, helping Antron. And that's why I think what makes it so shocking, at least in my case, because I think my guy, you think for a second, might be a nice guy, and then there's this kind of turn. And then, even when I'm on the stand, it's still like, I'm sort of like laying out the facts as I saw them, as much as I'm emphasizing that, Antron said he was innocent over and over. But I think to find that conviction, at least in my research of understanding how they work, and that good cop, bad cop dynamic is, that's kind of the tried and true method for that kind of stuff. So yeah, sorry, I'm rambling.
No,
I apologize.
No. It's great to hear you talk about your process. Interesting. You mentioned the Ken Burns' daughters, Sarah Burns and her husband David McMahon made this documentary back, I think, in 2012 about the Central Park Five. And at that time, I actually had the opportunity to interview Ken Burns, Sarah Burns, and David McMahon, and wait for it, they gave me the opportunity to interview Corey Wise.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Oh my God, Adam.
I know. Well, I was, of course, very moved by the documentary back then. This is now, 7 years ago? And I interviewed him, and I had like 10 minutes, like 6-7 minutes with the guy. And then when your movie went on, and I'm say it's your movie, because I'm not talking to Ava.
That's sweet of you. That's very sweet of you.
But no, when they see us went on Netflix, I'm like, I really should put that content on the Filmwax Radio YouTube channel. And I'm not utilizing it enough, and I'm not promoting that YouTube channel enough, and I haven't. I don't tweet about it a little bit here and there. I'm like, hey, there's a YouTube channel, and there's bonus content there, and there's all sorts of fun. And I put up old segments. So I put those up, and there's 20 in like less than a week. And this is with no promoting it, really. There's 22,000 views on Corey Wise.
Wow.
I mean... That's by far the biggest video I've ever put up, and not like 200 comments, like just people saying, Corey, we support you, we love you, you're the greatest, and then there's of course this small number of women who are on there who have a little bit more emotional reaction, but as you can imagine,
he's a hero. He's a hero,
man. And he's a star now to a lot of people. And I think this, if you're listening to this episode out there in podcast land, and you haven't watched When They See Us, I'm going to really urge you to do so. Go on Netflix and watch it, because other than also being a very, very, I think, sober and thorough account of that whole case, and I love how it also needles Trump every opportunity it can. I just love that. But because he's such a disgusting, horrible person back then, and
and shockingly,
yeah.
nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. No, he's exactly the same scumbag. The story, I guess you could say it oscillates among the different backstories or family stories of each of the Central Park Five. And the one with Corey is just, it's a nightmare. I mean, it really goes deep, that episode. I don't think you're in that one, but it's still it's harrowing to watch that episode.
It is absolutely harrowing, and my better half Tiffany, also a filmmaker. She, yes. I think we almost got a divorce in episode 4 because it's just so brutal, and she was like, why would you want to watch this? This is the most painful thing, and just completely torn apart by it, on a very like visceral level. And I was like, well, we have to see the rest of this, and I've had these conversations all over our community, that being in this, literally, especially, how it is, being in New York City or being in Brooklyn, and we're so lucky to go and live in communities that are multicultural, that are,
of course,
and enlightened. It's very different from, the times that we grew up and the era that the film is set in. But it is and it isn't. But being in something like this is, literally everyone, 7th and 8th graders at my son's school, I walk down the hallway and they want to have a conversation with me about it. They, every parent, every person I run into on the street is like, they want to talk about it, which is so, so exciting and incredible that it's, kind of like connected and is started this giant conversation. But yeah, Corey's story is, oh my God, like just gut wrenching.
Yeah. I'm just so glad I had the foresight to go back and find it and put it up there, because there's not a lot of,
it's
I guess there isn't a lot of stuff out there with him, but and I listened to it and I felt like, oh, I didn't do too bad with that, like I felt like, I guess that I haven't seen that documentary since it came out, but it was obviously very important to those guys. It was like the first really big project, with Ken Burns' name on it, and it reached a significant audience in a way that no other story before had done.
Yeah, and as you know better than me, it was, their whole case was dead in the water, and it was instrumental in,
yes,
their settlement and everything, and that they, it really kind of jump-started an awareness of where things were at with them. And, obviously, Raymond Santana, tweeted Ava, I guess it was like not even that long ago, 2017, and started, the wheels turning for When They See Us, which is, pretty amazing. But yeah, I mean, that documentary is, critical to again, it's a real life application of, if you make a film and it gets out there, it can, change people's lives, which is, as you and I know, there's a ton of great films, but that's not always the case, so, but yeah, that's crazy that you interviewed Corey, because like you're saying, there's not a lot of content, prior to When They See Us that, is actually investigating their story.
I was very nervous about it. I remember that. And I remember being very, very cautious just in terms of what I talked about, how I phrased like I wanted to connect. And I only had, Jayce, it's like I can talk to you and obviously we have a history, but also like I know if I screw up and say something in a Tourette's way, like, whatever, I'm not going to joke around. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I can fix it. I have time to rebound. I can, but
totally.
Here I'm in a room in a hotel, and a junket, and I have like, 10 minutes with the guy, and I have to try to connect and say something interesting, or get him to say something interesting, really more to the point, and to open up. And, it was a lot of pressure, Anyway, so I don't know. I got some nice comments. There's a few saying that it was a nice interview and that, people seemed to enjoy it. One person wrote, "Man, this guy asks long questions." So that's fair.
Yeah, they were around, we did the table reading about a year ago, and I remember like, I was so excited to get the job, and then, I take my son to camp, and I race down to the, Robert De Niro's film center, and, they sort of said, hey, be there between 8 and 9,
Wait, you went down to Tribeca? Is that where it was?
Yeah, because Robert De Niro and Jane Rosenthal, produced it along with Ava and Oprah and participant.
Oh, okay.
So, drop my son at camp, I get on the, the wonderful 2 or 3, and the train gets stuck, right? And
of course, and you want to get there at 8.
I should have gotten there at 8. No, I was shooting for 9 at this point, like a moron.
Okay,
right? And I get a call. It's literally 9 o'clock, and I'm like underground. I get a call from the AD, and he's like, "Hey, where are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting off at Chambers right now." And he's like, "How are you close?" And I was like, 5 minutes. And he's like, 5 minutes? And Adam, I've never moved that fast in my life. I was, I had like, like as half a suit on, because we're reading I'm like, I want to look like a detective. I want to, it's the first time I have ever played a detective, and I play a lot of perpetrators, like other things I've done. And so I run, and I burst through the doors, and there's like 250 people there, and Ava,
all wearing half suits and sweating.
Right. Ava's standing up addressing everyone, and the exonerated 5 are standing there, and I wait
a minute, the exonerated 5? You mean the actors?
No, the Central Park 5.
Oh, they were there.
Yeah, they were on set throughout the process.
Wow.
Off and on. So I try to find my little name card, and it hasn't started, but I was like, and I kind of squeeze in across from Felicity Huffman and Vera Farmiga, and a couple of my detective, friends, and I'm like borrowing a napkin. I'm like sweating profusely. And,
yeah, right.
And jump right into the reading. And I think it's okay to tell the story, but we read episode 1, and then I go up to, Ava, who I'd been rehearsing with, and, we were getting on, very well. And I say, Ava, I'm so sorry I was late. And she said, yeah, don't ever, ever do that again. Ever. And now so you will never be late again. And Adam, I think I pooped my pants. I think I pooped my pants. I literally was...
Little poop.
I was like, poop. I am so going to be fired. And then we had to sit down and read episode 2, and like Robert De Niro walked in and like said hi to everybody, but I was so like in the zone that I was like, don't stand up and say hi to Robert De Niro. Like, this is not
right.
This is not. So needless to say, everything was fine, but it was very informative about, I think, what we're now observing now is to make something like this, right? Ava was like, I don't have time for that shit. I know right. You a little bit. I got a vibe about you, but if you're going to pull that shit, then you're out, because I have to tell this huge story, right? So I observed her being like, the most compassionate, intelligent, powerful collaborator, and also an extremely strong leader. And when I watched that the 4 episodes, because you're a performer, you're like, oh, I'm in the first 2, and then you see episode 3 and 4, and like you were just saying, they're like entirely different movies, and tonally and everything, and you're like, I'm like, how in God's name did she pull this off? It's pretty monumental, but she pulled it off because I think she has that incredible leadership, obviously, her intelligence, creativity, and all that stuff. So obviously I admire her greatly, but at that moment I'm sure I soiled my pants.
Oh yeah. Well, it's understandable.
Yeah, I came home, I was like, honey, I'm definitely getting fired, just so you know. So I'm getting fired from this huge job.
Well, glad that obviously it went a different way.
Did
but,
yes, thankfully it did.
It's like who. Just think about who. I mean, I'm sure people like that. There are a certain population of actors or whomever that are just kind of spacey and who just sort of show up when they show up. And it's true. It's like that. None of that can go on in this production. I know I've worked in smaller things where that was the case, but that there's none of that in this production. And she doesn't know you that well. Like know that you were legitimately you were taking your son to school. And then you got stuck in a subway, which, by the way, in New York City, I got stuck in the subway this morning.
Yeah,
for 15 minutes.
They
nosed the first car. This is like they're telling you there's a sick passenger on the train ahead, which is bullshit. And then they nosed, literally, Jayce, they nosed my train's first car, the front car, into the station at Lexington and 59th Street. And they said to all the passengers, if you want to get out, you have to walk to the front.
Oh my!
It took 10 minutes.
It's like the 70s.
Everybody had to file through fortunately I wasn't all the way in the last car or something, but I had to file through like 4 cars to go to the very front door to get out of this train because only the front car was like at the platform.
Wow.
And this is, so of course this happens all the time. But of course probably Ava, Miss Big Shot, Miss I'm having dinner with De Niro and Oprah Winfrey tonight. She doesn't take the subway. This poor schmuck of an actor walks in and he's already soiled his pants through perspiration. I wouldn't be surprised
if she does take the subway. But no, I'm
having fun.
Yeah, no, and it's true. And by telling the story, I'm having some fun too. But it definitely,
it's a good story.
It definitely set my. It caused me to say, you know what, this is going to be. You got to dig in. You really got to dig in with this one because there was some moments. I think the audition process alone, Billy Hopkins cast it, great casting director, and he cast, my film The Cake Eaters years ago. And, I went in to read for him for one of the detective parts. And I remember thinking, because Antron McCrae, whose character, I end up, Khalil Harris plays him, and I have a lot of, most of my stuff is with him. So he, plays baseball. So I remember thinking, well, I coach Little League, so, I'm gonna talk to him like I'm a Little League coach. So I do this audition, but I'm like, again, I've never played a detective, any kind of law enforcement kind of person, and, have great respect, obviously, for law enforcement and all that stuff. So I leave, okay, I wish I had done this. I was probably too quiet, did this, all this normal actor stuff. And then they're like, yeah, you have a call back with Ava. So I go down to the Tribeca Film Center. And then in retrospect, everybody in that waiting room ended up being cast. So many of us are like, wow, I think it was just an opportunity for her to get to work with people that she already had decided on. So
right, that's what it sounds like.
Which is really unique, like her whole take on everything seems to me, I don't want to say old school, but like having, I had opportunity in my, not superstar career, but I've had the opportunity to work with John Frankenheimer and Richard Linklater, and now Ava DuVernay, and like a few really, really great directors. So there's this quality that I sort of see that has run through them. This being one of them, where there's this great kind of like instinct and confidence. So I go in to meet her, I read for Hildebrandt, and she's like, you could get me to tell you anything, right? Because I was going with this whole Little League coach idea, because I was like, I'm not going to convince anybody that I'm this, brutal, intimidating detective, and but I could be this kid's best friend, which I think sadly is part of that dynamic which I was speaking about before, that is employed, we see it a million times in movies, but is truly employed, amongst the detective squad when they're trying to sort of, make somebody, they're using a lot of these techniques.
Yes.
And they're
right.
I don't want to say tried and true because it sort of makes light of it, but I was like, I see. Okay. So this is how, somewhere I didn't quite process it at that point, but she seemed to be very favorable and encouraging. And she said, I want to see this turn. I want to see this dark turn. I did that and kind of got in the zone. And then I was like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but It's just amazing to meet you, and I just think this is going to be something really special. Left, didn't think anything of it again. And in fact, I thought, another actor was in the waiting room that's, he's played all these violent dirtbag cops. And I was like, oh, this guy's going to get it, and I was like, end of story. So Tiffany and I go off to the Edinburgh Film Festival to promote a documentary that she directed, Larger Than Life, the Kevin O'Quan story that I produced. And I'm also trying to put together my own narrative film. And so we are out to this, well-known young actor. And while we're in Scotland, this is like how crazy the business that we've signed up for is. We visit some friends on this remote island, friends that used to live in Brooklyn, to move back to this remote island in Scotland and open up a little country store, right? So we go there, we have to take trains and ferries, and it's this most beautiful place you could imagine. We're there, and no internet, and on the way, the ferry docks, and Tiffany says, I don't want to tell you this, but I got this email, when we left the mainland, and it's that the actor had said no to playing the lead in my script, right? So, Adam, and I know you've experienced this. Here I was seeing these friends I hadn't seen in like 3 or 4 years. I just my face, I was just like, you gotta smile. I was pretty depressed, but I was like, hey, it's so great to see you. And we're on the beach, and Tiffany's, we know them. So she's like, yeah, this actor that he really wanted said no. So I'm like kind of wandering out into the Scottish, sea. They have these great names, the Isle of, all the, I'm like, I'm just going to keep walking. I was so depressed. And then literally a couple hours later, we're at their house, and Tiffany screams, and she's like, oh my God, you got you got that part in Ava's film. And I was like, how crazy in this one day where you can have the high, the lowest, and then this total reversal of the highest. So, it was just one of those great things.
Yeah, it was one of those days. I don't know, honestly, I've only had days where good things have come to me, so I don't relate to that personally. But I understand anecdotally what you're saying. I can understand intellectually.
I know you can't emotionally relate, but yes, it was truly
right. No, I can't empathize by any means, but I can certainly intellectually understand.
Yeah,
that's great. Now let's get congratulations, and I hope you filled the actor's role since.
You say that again?
I hope you recast the successfully
recast.
Yes,
we have recast. Yes, we have successfully recast it. The process goes on, as you know. These things take forever, but this
I know, it's like my producer problem I'm having. I'm not getting. I thought they would fall into my lap because of all
because everyone,
endless. Because I know so many independent film producers, so many people, and it's been a bit challenging.
It's tough. But you'll find the right person. But it is challenging. It's very challenging. If I can think of any producers. I'll throw them your way because we also know. Yeah, we know. I know we know some of the same people.
It's hard because I appreciate it. I really do. Because it's hard. It's like it's short. There's no market, so I understand why do a lot of producers want to. They don't necessarily want to go into shorts. It's understandable, but I'm trying to get somebody who maybe isn't. I don't know, somebody who's not just all about being a feature producer, of course, or who's younger, maybe somebody who's young and hungry. I don't know. I'll find somebody.
I'm excited for you, man. It's going to be great.
Thank you. I'm very excited. I'm excited too. Even no matter what happens, I'm very excited. It's a comedy, and it'll be fun. We're gonna have a good time. So, did you ever get to meet De Niro, and pal around with him after that day? Was there?
He was.
I mean,
there was like a.
I could care less. Personally, I'm asking as the avatar for my audience.
Of course, yeah, of course. I mean, well, no, I didn't. It was like a running joke. Like he, we had a rap party, and then he was there, and I had no idea he was there. And this actor Patrick Gallo, who plays one of the other detectives. Patrick's a terrific actor, and he's in The Irishman. So he was chatting with Jane Rosenthal, and then Patrick was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the bathroom for a second," and he goes off to the bathroom. I lose him for about 30, 45 minutes. I'm like, where did Patrick go? And then he's like, hey, you ready to go? And I'm like, yeah, you want to go? And, we had seen Ava and, a lot of other castmates and, sort of rap party. We'd been there for a little while, sort of run its course. And then we had driven up together and we get in the car and he goes, sorry. I ran into Bob De Niro. He was at a booth in the back and, we sat down and talked for a while. And I'm like, are you kidding me, man? And he's like, yeah. Oh yeah. Did you want to meet him? And I was like, no, I didn't want to. Like, nah, I really didn't want to meet him. And then the premiere happened at the Apollo, which was like a big deal, right? And I think everybody was like, are we going to get invited? Who's going to get invited? What's going to happen, right? And then all the principals got invited, which was amazing. And, it was like something, it was totally nuts. It was like total scene, huge event, incredible event. They opened like the top floor to residents that live around the Apollo. And, it was just obviously tons of press and red carpet stuff. And then getting into the Apollo itself and just the history. And then, you're like, oh my God, now we have to watch episode 1 and 2 together. And then the Exonerated 5 come onto the stage at the end, obviously cast and, all that stuff. And then there was an after party, which was also very shrouded in secrecy. And yes, same thing. Like this De Niro was elusive. So no, it hasn't happened. I'm thinking when it happens with me, it's going to be right. It's going to be like I'm sitting across from him doing one scene in a big movie with him.
All right.
That's what I'm thinking now. That's what I'm putting out in the universe.
Then it's not like, some superficial thing, it's a substantial thing and that will always be there not like just talking to him in the men's room or something.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be like, even though clearly there was some very big powers that be behind this, there was none of that like stuff to the naked eye. It was just, we were in these old police stations in Staten Island and it was all very gritty and everybody, again, I use the comparison to an independent film because it felt very much like Ava, the actors, and her crew is like her mafia. They're like kind of a family, a unit, and sort of very encouraging, but also very invisible because they are, her team. So it felt unusual in that way, and that these big producers and people, they were there someplace, but it wasn't the normal dynamic where there's so much emphasis on like who's in Video Village and will I get to chat with somebody at lunch and maybe I'll, it was not that. I tried to not bring my phone to set, because it was 89, and usually, as what ends up happening in this day and age is you go to the set, you sit in your chairs, everybody chats a little bit politely, and then everybody gets buried into their phones, and you're sort of like we are in this culture. You constantly want to be someplace than where you are. And I think many of us were like, what place would you rather be than working on this set? Right. And with this level of material, with this, everyone that's behind this and involved. So we were very much connected. My dealings, as were with the other detectives and with, Michael K. Williams and, and then the stuff in the court, but everyone was very connected, and just in terms of getting to know each other and share stories. And oddly, of course, all the detectives became, a detective family, as terrifying as that sounds, just in terms of like, we all bonded, and like William Sadler and Bruce McVitie, William Sadler's been in like 4,000 movies, he plays Detective Sheehan, who's sort of one of the prime movers, but just and I think Ava, like we all came to the rap party together, and she was like, this is terrifying. You guys all are buddies, and you all just came together, and you're all in the corner talking to each other, all of the detectives, You know what I mean? I was like,
yeah, but that's what she's doing
like that's
behind the camera.
That's what happens.
Though.
I think that's also what made it.
But I get it. Ironically, I don't think she probably saw the irony.
Yeah,
there,
and
that's what she's doing.
No,
Okay.
she definitely did. I think she was like, "Are you not talking to anybody?" I think she just thought it was, and it definitely encouraged it and thought it was hilarious. But yeah, and I think that's also what makes some of that stuff so unsettling, because you clearly see a group of men that are they think that they're doing the right thing, and that they're not doing the right thing, and no one stopped to really sort of say this makes no sense, and these guys are saying they're innocent, and this is such a horrific crime, and we're looking at some 14 to 16-year-olds, that were brought in for, in a big dragnet for, not nice things, but this is a whole other level of deviant, ultra-violent behavior. And, you see, like, why did nobody say, whoa, put the brakes on here. I don't think it's these kids, So, yeah, that kind of like bonding and conviction, I think really helped, obviously tell that part of the story, which is, it's tough stuff that I was doing with Michael and stuff. It's just, I watch it now and I'm like, I remember last summer being a very dark time for me, just dark because you're coming home with all this stuff. But I'm like, wow, I don't know how any of us, did some of that stuff. It was like very, very intense stuff. So I'm really grateful to be involved with it. And I think those kind of things that you can't really predict when or how they're going to come into your life, but I'm sure grateful that this particular one did, for sure. And God knows, who knows if I will ever, people would say to me right when it hit, because I think my wife was like, hey, be careful. I know you are excited to be in this, right? But I think people could really, really come up to you and be like, you're a fucking asshole, like.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who can't discern between reality and fiction, or in this case, reality and
right.
A movie,
and the fact that we're
whatever.
all cast and on this because, not speaking for myself, but there's some incredibly talented people involved with this, and we're all there to sort of tell this, this story that Ava is passionate about telling, and we're all there, but they can't discern that. So I think even going in, some friends, even when it started to play and have great success, people are like, oh, are you concerned that it's going to really tank your career? Your, the stuff that you're doing. And, to that I say, like, Jesus, the opportunity to get to play the complexity of those situations and to be able to enlighten, this kind of thing that happens, I don't care. I mean, I hope not, but I wasn't a worry or concern of mine, and isn't. You read stuff. People are, like one of the kids, I think Asante, that plays Kevin Richardson. He posted a picture of him and all the detectives having fun,
yeah.
and those, the young actors that portray them are so sweet, and we were all, getting along. And then I see Ava and all these people comment on Instagram like, oh my God, this is how we how we kept it light. And then like I start to read down, and you can't do that. People are like, I hate those detectives. I hate those actors. I will always hate them. I will hate them. And I'm just like, oh, so that's what my friend was talking about.
Well, I think they should redirect it for the Felicity Huffman's really the villain.
Yes, right, exactly.
But she's already serving time, so it's not.
I know that too. I sort of was just this is my own, kind of like actor walking around Brooklyn thinking, wow, I'm in something that I think is going to be really great. And then Felicity gets in all that trouble. And, my experience with her, obviously, I was in awe of her talent and very nice person and everything. She got into that trouble. I was like, everyone was like, anything that she's in is gonna be shelved. And I think, all of us started to chatter on, texts and stuff like, what do you think this means for,
right.
when they see us? Or it was called, Central Park 5 at the time.
Oh.
And, everybody was like chattering, like, is this, and then I think in some ultra method way, and I feel bad for, obviously, Felicity obviously is not right what she did, and she sort of is doing her thing, serving her time, or, owning up for it.
Right.
But that sort of portraying Linda Fairstein, who, the fact that she still maintains that they, even though they were exonerated, there's no DNA. She maintains that they were present, and that this, I'm trying to remember his name, the serial rapist that confessed, that he was the sixth person that they
right.
always knew was out there. It's so, obviously I don't need to say it. It's so odious. It's so,
they dug in their heels, they doubled down, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. It was really disgusting.
It's really exactly like what Trump said and everything recently. It's just, hey, you thought you were doing the right thing. You pushed this through. You sent these 5 kids away.
And was able to benefit on it on top of that by her books, her novels. She was able to maximize on top of that by becoming a published author of several bestsellers. So it's
right. And it's really makes me really, really sick, because I've spent a lot of time, I'm sure as all of us have, thinking about, what happened that night. I mean, I grew up, I think you grew up, did you grow up here too, Adam? You did. I mean, I was a teenager in New York City going to Xavier High School, oddly, where, Detective Sheehan, a friend of mine sent me an email, an obituary of his. He just passed away, the character William Sadler plays. He went to my high school, unbeknownst to me, throughout the filming of this, which I thought was just such a creepy and faded thing, because my high school graduates a lot of, it's all boys Catholic, right. Jesuit. I don't know what it graduates now, but when I went there, it graduated a lot of, NYPD, FDNY,
sure.
It kind of like finance, and, those kind of brackets that, you get what I'm saying. So, I just think it's totally nuts that he went there. But, long story short, it just really, just thinking about New York at the time, remembering it, trying to put myself in that headspace, right, of what the city was like then, right? And then, putting it into this detective head, and then, it was obviously a different city, different time, kind of different viewpoint, but spending a lot of time thinking about the case from a detective's point of view, which is not a great headspace to put yourself in, but, trying to think through it to portray that character, as all of us were trying to do. You really try to think about it as they thought about it, which, is kind of frightening. But the fact that she still maintains that, it is just, it's pretty brutal.
All right. Well, this has been great. Once again, When They See Us, spectacular. It's huge. Check it out. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, watch it. It bring a lot of Kleenex. It's definitely the thing. Right. The thing that you have to see. It's very powerful.
That's right. And it's one of the many fine actors. Among the very many fine actors in the cast is my friend Jayce Bartok, who is we've been talking with for the last 20 minutes. No, kidding. Hour and 20 minutes. We'll do it again when whenever.
Adam, thank
soon.
You, man. I really appreciate it, and it just blows my mind that you interviewed Corey, and I hope that was good, man. That's kind of my.
Wonderful. It's fantastic.
I was also trying to be very, like it is a, yeah, I don't want to just sort of like start.
No, it's great.
Stories.
And then, like a lot of actors, it's great. No, it's great because a lot of actors who might listen, I think it's going to be terrific to hear your experience with something like this. It's fantastic.
Dude, thank you, and let's catch up in person.
Yes, I'd love that. We'll make that happen. I'll be in Brooklyn very soon. I'll be in Brooklyn by August.
Drop me a line.
But I'm in there all the time. I'm running around all the time.
And we'll grab a coffee, get a drink or something.
All
right, man. It's so great talking to you, and thank you again. And yeah,
Same here.
drop me a line when it's up, and I'm excited.
Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Too.
You too, man.
Have a good night.
Bye.